People who have had a near-death experience. What did you experience? I attempted suicide when I was 16. I don't know what happened, but all I remember is waking up on my bedroom's floor next to a puddle of puke. And the very first second after I regained consciousness I felt a terrible amount of shame and gratitude. It also felt like I had understood something, but I can't quite put my finger on it. It's like I had a much more holistic view of the world. After the initial shock, I realized I would not even kill a bothersome bug in my house, yet I attempted to murder me. I was mad at myself for being the only person I would do that to. Overall, it was a very eye-opening experience. Felt much like after you've taken certain types of psychedelics. I'm glad you're alright. I tried to OD when I was 16 too. It was so strange waking up in the hospital. The therapist was so worried about me, but I really felt better. I had a new outlook on life. It scared me so badly. It was then that I realized I didn't want to die. I just wanted a solution, and that wasn't it. Almost drowned as a kid. About 1 minute of sheer panic followed by a eerie sense of calm. I just remember thinking to myself, well, I'm gonna die, while looking up at the lights people above the water. Next thing I remember, I was puking water out on the side of the pool. Exact same thing happened to me. Was at a busy swimming pool as a kid. Sank under. Couldn't swim up. I remember just straight up not being able to get to the surface. Was very scared for maybe 20-30 seconds, then everything felt eerily peaceful. Then my instructor grabbed my arm and pulled me up, and she patted my back and told me to go get changed. Still haven't told my parents LMAO. I had a large tumor that eventually forced me to get a hysterectomy. It was discovered after, pardon the graphic description, large pieces of my innards began to come out. I was weak and losing a lot of blood and eventually lost consciousness. While out, I heard a chorus of voices beckoning me to let go. It was very tempting, very pleasant, but I forced myself to swim back to reality and awaken in the emergency room. I could still hear the voices, faintly. I think the most interesting part was the absolute knowledge I had afterwards that I had to eat more vegetable soup. That homemade vegetable soup was what my body would be needing, so I made it a lot. It's been 22 years and I'm fairly healthy for my age. Knock wood. That's as close as I've gotten to an NDE. I was visiting Chernobyl on a small day trip from Kiev. Even though it was illegal, the guide let us go inside one of the huge apartment complexes, around 20-25 floors. We all went to the rooftop to get the full view of the area, and the guide told us we could check out some of the abandoned apartments on the way down if we wanted to. The majority of the group went inside the first apartment on the way down, but I thought I'd skip a few floors and go in one by myself. I went down to the 18th floor and inside an apartment. It was very dark inside and a lot of abandoned stuff on the floor. Old family photos and torn dolls. It was a bit creepy. I continued into another room, but it was too dark to see anything. So while walking I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight. As I turned it on I was just about to step into an open elevator shaft going 18 floors down. I was literally one step from what would have been my dead. I immediately stepped back and I felt an intense adrenaline rush. As scary as it was, I actually enjoyed the feeling, and I still get shivers down my spine just thinking about what happened. 18 floors. Not great, not terrible. I was asleep and was woken up to my neighbor pounding on the door. He told me there was a fire and I had to get out. Let me tell you, my emergency plan had one step on it. The cat carrier is always clean and available. My first cat went in the carrier fine, and sat in it while I retrieved his sister. I had to chase my second cat and she wouldn't go in. I finally get the cats wrangled, about 3 minutes, and I open my front door to pitch black. It felt like I had all of the oxygen sucked from my lungs. My eyes were burning, my throat was burning. If there was still electricity in the building it had cut out, or the smoke was so thick and dark I couldn't see. I felt my way down the hall to the stairs. I couldn't breathe anymore and I fell down. I knew there were firefighters outside because I could hear them and I tried to scream for help, but I couldn't even inhale. I realized that no help was coming at all and stood the frick back up and somehow powered my way out of the building. There's a gap in my memory between falling and stumbling outside with the sweet embrace of fresh air. I asked some random guy if he had any water and he gave me his half-drank bottle. I chugged the crap out of it and called my family to pick me up at 2 a.m. I got out with the clothes on my back and my cats. I vomited up black crap for days. I coughed and sneezed up more black stuff. I'm wheezing non-stop but I made it out. I'm living in my aunt's basement but I have cried happy tears every day I have my kitties. One time while I was driving down an old curvy back road I came real freaking close to biting it. We were going up a hill in a small car, doing about 60-70 and when we came up over the top there was a semi-truck in my lane passing a car. I had like 2 seconds to get out of his way or he would have hit me head on. Had to swerve into the ditch and slam on brakes. If I didn't react as fast as I did I probably wouldn't be here now. We were fine but I just about crapped myself when that happened. Felt unreal. Got it? Near death equals emergency bowel movements. So during one of my depressed moments I was cleaning my shotgun and had just unloaded it. Or so I thought. In my depressed state I wanted to know how hard it was to pull the trigger when the barrel was under my chin. It was oddly difficult but when the pin finally snapped I pulled the barrel away from my chin and racked the action open. Only to watch a red shotgun shell tumble out of the chamber and onto my floor. I'm only alive today because of faulty ammunition. 15-year-old brother actually died for half an hour. He has a weird named condition called Wolff-White syndrome. He had woke up one morning, complained of a headache and just dropped. His heart had stopped and his dad, my stepdad, did CPR as best he could until the ambulance arrived. He was put into a medically induced coma for a week then woken up. Practically had no idea what happened. He's still being monitored and has regular checkups since this happened in May. Next week I believe he is going to London to see a specialist and then have a pacemaker fitted. I asked him if he dreamt or experienced anything during his time out of it, and he said there was nothing. It was just dark. I don't know if this is considered a near-death experience, but in my shoes it sure felt like it at the time. I was at my old job where I was an IT consultant who traveled and worked in school systems primarily. The one school I was in was converted into a professional building, so it had the bones of a school but it was all the administration people and training classes. It was a huge building, and surprisingly not a lot of people were there. Was a normal day like any other. Felt fine, was doing my work, finished eating breakfast and had to use the restroom. When I walked into the restroom, the only thing I remember was I paused, I stopped moving, then everything went black. I was found unconscious on the floor, against the wall probably an hour later. I woke up and I was beyond out of it. All I remember is I couldn't see anything but darkness, and my co-worker found me and said oh crap. I passed back out. I woke up again. All I remember is hearing sirens but nothing else. I couldn't see where I was. I couldn't tell where I was. All I could hear was a faint siren sound. It's all dark. I then puked. It was painful. I then felt a hand on my shoulder. Still black. Still don't know what was going on or where I was. I think I was in the ambulance. I blacked out again. Some more time went by. I woke up. Couldn't see. But man did my head hurt. I also had this heavy weight on my chest. All I remember is hearing don't move. Don't move. Stay still, this will be over shortly. I was panicking. Someone is yelling don't move at me. It's dark. I can feel a heavy weight on my chest. Still can't see. Hearing is still not there. Seconds later I passed out again. I hear my mom's voice. Then it goes away. I hear it again, nothing. I woke up and I could see. It's blurry but I then realized I was in the hospital and something happened. I had my accident at around 8:30 am. And I finally woke up with partial vision back at 2 am in the morning. No one knows what happened. I don't know what happened. Doctors can't put together how or why it happened. In their eyes I was completely healthy and fine. I cracked the back of my skull on my fall which caused the blackouts, puking, vision loss, hearing loss, and just losing all my senses. And I had the worst case of vertigo imaginable. It took 3 months for everything to fully heal. And I about 4 years for my vertigo to reduce to almost nothing. Every once in a while I get vertigo but it's not bad at all considering when I first got it. I rolled my car while getting on the highway and got out without a single scratch on me. The first responder was shocked at how untouched I was. A million things were running through my mind and I just didn't know how to react to it. After fainting one time, I clearly saw myself jogging during a sunset. There were green hills around me and a tree in the distance. It looked like a park, but I was jogging towards the sun, which was extremely bright, to the point that I couldn't see ahead of me. Thing is, this place doesn't exist because where I'm from it's a desertic area, so there's not many green areas. When I woke up, I was in the hospital with a bunch of nurses around me asking if I knew my name, how old I was, etc. After I regained consciousness, I realized I was jogging towards the light. I told my mom and close friends and they freaked out. It hasn't happened since then. We have a saying where I work, you only make a mistake once because that one mistake usually kills you. 3000 volt went through my fingers. My entire arm went numb for a couple of minutes. Got crazy lucky because if it went further than my fingers I would have died. For those who know very little about electricity, 220 V is enough to kill you if it passes your heart. I got hit by something 10 plus times that. I don't actually remember this happening, but I have been told by family that it did indeed happen. I was a baby, maybe 1/2 years old or 2 years old. My parents are not home, and my granny is watching me and my brother, who is 3 years older than me. My brother has a friend over for a visit, who we will call David. My granny was not that old at the time, probably in her early 60s, but she was very kind of hands off when watching us, meaning she watched TV and let us play. The house we lived in at the time was split into different rooms, none of that open space, kitchen living room thing. So granny was in the living room and us kids were in the kitchen, and guess I was being annoying or some crap, or at least annoyed David. So when my brother had to go to the toilet, our granny took him out there and did their business. Meanwhile, I was left unsupervised with David. No one really knows what happened, because I don't remember, so this part is how my granny has told it. Her and my brother come out of the toilet and David and I are not there. My granny thinks nothing of it yet, and just calls for us. We don't respond. She then walks around the house looking for us, with my brother close behind her. She finds me and David in the laundry room. David is on top of me, strangling me. According to my granny, she flung David off me, and I was blue and unconscious. She did CPR on me. She says everything else happened in kind of a blur, but she called my parents and told them to get a hold of David's parents to come pick him up, because he did something. My parents and David's parents show up at around the same time. I'm conscious again, and my dad is pee when he hears what happened. From what I've been told, my dad gave David's parents a verbal beating and we never saw them again. I was also taken to the hospital to get checked up. David didn't do any real damage because I wasn't unconscious for long enough and he wasn't strong enough to actually kill me. Holy crap, I wonder where David is now. Lots of comments from people who almost died. Here is one from someone who did. I was trying to get back to work after heart surgery. I went to do a shift washing dishes. There were so many dishes that I didn't finish till 3 AM. I was so busy I didn't even know it was snowing. I was already soaked and my phone dead. I walked the 6 blocks to the bus stop in a blizzard. The digital sign said that the next bus was almost a 3-hour wait. I knew I couldn't wait that long. I was freezing and shaking uncontrollably already. I went to 3 places asking to use the phone. All of them turned me away. On the way back to the bus stop, I had a massive pain in my chest. I saw a bright light, tiny at first. It got bigger and bigger. When it reached me, I felt so at peace. All the pain and cold gone. I saw my grandmother passed away over 20 years ago. She was smiling and said that I told you if you believed that I would see you in heaven. I then heard a loud voice say he is not done. I came to with my face in 10 inches of snow. The pain and cold had returned. I got up, stumbled to the bus stop. The bus pulled up as I got there. I went to the doctor the next morning. Test showed that I had heart seizure. I have brain damage from being dead too long. Scaring in the brain, they call it. I have central vertigo and get dizzy all the time. I am disabled for life but alive. The doctors at the university told me the only reason why I'm not more brain damaged than I am is that I was persevered by the cold. I almost drowned in a wave pool. both because I'm a teeny tiny and because I wasn't paying attention to the fact that I was being pulled out further with each wave. I experienced a determination to live regardless of what effects it had on the other people around me. I almost drowned my cousin climbing up her back, and then I attached myself to some random man who walked me back to the artificial shore. Totally in a move, but in that moment my only concern was surviving. I remember the conscious choice to continue to use my cousin as a flotation device, and once she went down I abandoned her and grabbed the nearest person. Luckily she's always been pretty tall and was able to just stand up, but that could have been much worse. Will eternally feel like the shittiest person. That kinda goes with the tip I read that you shouldn't swim out to save a drowning person but throw something they can grab onto to float or for you to pull them in, since they'd drag you down with them if you swam out there. It's pretty much instinct to stay afloat by any means, even if you don't realize it. I was with my family at the beach in San Diego. I think it was early June a few years ago. We had gone out to the beach around 10 AM and the tide had been going out, so the water was pretty shallow for a long way out. Well, being 15, I of course wanted to go out as far as I could, ignoring my dad telling me to be careful. So sometime while being out there the tide changed and the water started getting deeper, and right when I go to turn around and swim towards shore a riptide starts pulling me out. My dad is telling me I need to come back and I'm frantically trying to swim towards shore until I realize I can't. I tell my dad I'm stuck and he decides to try to help me get back, but ends up getting pulled out with me. At this point we're both freaking out pretty bad since the waves are getting really big since we're far out and we start getting pulled under each time a wave goes by. The waves had gotten tall enough that we couldn't really see the horizon or the shore and we start waving and yelling for help. But for some reason there was no lifeguard in spite of there being a station and there wasn't that many people on the part of the beach we were at. So we're screaming for help and my dad is trying to keep me above water and I'm screaming help like I never have and I honestly thought I was gonna die. Then my dad screams, "Lord Jesus, please help me," and instantly the ocean just went flat. I have no clue what happened, but all the waves just suddenly stopped and some guy on a surfboard just showed up and offered us help. I had no idea where he came from, but me and my dad grabbed the surfboard and he helped us back to shore. If he hadn't shown up or if the waves hadn't stopped, me and my dad would have most likely drowned. That was the only time in my life where I have physically had the urge to kiss the ground. Not sure how close to death I was, but I had a fever when I was immunocompromised and in hospital. I remember being mostly confused, just in general about everything. Later I found out that was actually a pretty precarious way to be. In 2016 my appendix burst. I didn't know that it did. I was suffering really bad stomach pain. The pain started about 3 days before it got bad. I thought I was just getting sick. Well, fast forward 3 days and I'm in actual heck suffering from nausea and insane stomach pain. My BF was at work, so I called him and he called an ambulance to pick me up. The ambulance never came. So my mom, who is a nurse, picked me up and took me to the doctor. At this point my skin was yellow. The doctor gave me some nausea medication. I went back home and when my BF finally got back from work he rushed me to the hospital. Mind you, at this point we still didn't know it was a burst appendix. I was sitting in the waiting room for way too long, so my BF takes me to another hospital where they promptly took me in. One of the doctors or whatever said they wished I had come sooner. And at this point I'm laying on the hospital bed, really drugged up because of the pain. It didn't hit me until I had surgery and was at home that him saying he wished I came in sooner meant that I was in pretty bad shape. Scary stuff. My appendix was black. When I was I think 4, I would complain a lot that something was sore, so my mom would give me some Advil. I had an allergic reaction to that Advil, like I couldn't breathe. And as far as I know, that was the first time my mom ever had to call 911. We still didn't know what I was allergic to yet, because my reactions were slightly delayed. So, what do you know? I asked for more Advil the very next day. WTF 4-year-old me. My mom gives it to me. Same reaction. Called 911 again. So for 8 years, everyone thought I was deathly allergic to Advil, aspirin, those types of medicines. Turns out, I'm not allergic to Advil at all. The bottle of Advil my mom had been given me was one she bought and didn't throw away when they recalled all the Advil bottles. Turns out, I'm actually deathly allergic to mold. The Advil was moldy, that's why it was recalled. Keep in mind that these were not the only reactions I had that I told you about here. I think there was actually 4 or 5 reactions in total. Guys, when something gets recalled, throw it away. I've spent 19 days in a coma for accidental indigestion of an herbicide. I had a landscaping accident about 3 years ago. Life is good. If anyone wants to talk about coma dreams, let me know. I was 5 years old, camping with my grandparents. This was late fall early winter, and I saw my brother breaking thin ice with a stick. I didn't have a stick, so me being the dumbass that I am, I decided to break thin ice with my foot. Let's just say it didn't end very well. Lucky for me, I wasn't far from the camper, and my brother happened to witness my dumb fuckery and ran to get my grandma, who saved my life. I was ran over by a truck, coma for 2 weeks, left arm destroyed, left leg broken, but only some bruises on my right side. My mom said that it was a miracle that I survived and regained full motion back in a year. I don't believe in God, but yeah, the odds were low as heck. Even if I survived, I would probably never use my left arm again, and I would have to walk with a cane for the rest of my life. I was 17, but frick the odds, I'm good as new after only 2 years. I remember being chocked with a trash bag about a solid minute. It happened when I was in primary school. I think it was in 3rd or 4th grade, or something like that. I remember that it was about to be summer, and everyone was packing their stuff. Books, pens, notebooks, with trash bags. And I knew a kid that was pretty weird from my class. He didn't have much friends. Neither did I. But I also knew a few more friends. For example, a kid from Netherlands. Let's call him Mark. I didn't use his real name out of respect of his privacy. Anyways, I guess he was done packing his stuff up, and he got himself a spare trash bag and, well, I guess it was nothing but a prank joke for him, but he caught me off guard and I'm not too good at holding my breath. Also, chocking someone with a trash bag to their death isn't really funny. The teacher wasn't in class. She was probably drinking coffee, talking with other teachers, and the rest of the class was pretty busy. I couldn't even scream or ask for help. My breath was limited. After all, I desperately tried to rip that trash bag off of my face. I failed. I was starting to get a bit dizzy. I felt weaker and I felt like I could pass out soon. I always thought that dying by limited oxygen is the worst way of dying. Your body will keep resisting and limiting the usage of oxygen. The sounds of people rushing around wasn't as clear. I felt the blood in my veins pass slower. It wasn't pleasing as you could guess. I couldn't even think at that moment. I suppose I was angry by his betrayal and shocked. Still, I knew it was him. I could hear his laughter and smirking. All I cared at that moment was to get that trash bag out of my face. I failed. It was even interesting, because despite the fact that the trash bag around my head was black, I remember the lights passing through the bag fading a little. At that moment, my body started using minimal energy, and I wasted a lot of that energy by resisting the trash bag. Basically, the more I fought, the weaker and slower I felt. If you're a person who had somewhat a similar experience, you know what I mean. But then, Mark came rushing to my help. He helped me take the trash bag off my face. He yelled at that kid. I thanked him a lot, only to see that the teacher was not in class, and people were still busy. That's it. Feel free to ask anything. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.